Good afternoon, and welcome to the Online Faculty Certification Program. Today we're going to be doing a little training, a little overview of the IVYC110IL, or instructor-led modules, for the Online Faculty Certification Program. If you can hear me, please feel free to just say hello in the chat box. Great, thank you very much. You are welcome to participate in today's training session either through posting questions in the chat box or by using your microphone to ask questions. Please just remember, if you are not asking a question, to make sure that you're muting your microphone. So let's just jump right in today. We're going to be talking about three things. We're going to do an overview of the course content for those instructor-led modules. We're going to talk about the application process, if you'd like to teach a 2-week session, and then also the compensation for teaching a 2-week section of the online certification course. Okay, so what we're looking at is the shell for the IVYC110IL, or instructor-led modules. This 2-week course has deadlines and assignments and is intended to be taught just like a traditional online course would be taught. So there will be deadlines and assignments. We're expecting our facilitators to kind of give the best practices in online teaching. So we're asking you to do a go-to meeting session both in week 5 and week 6. We're asking you to use BBIM. We're asking you to use email or messages, whatever communication tool you feel is most important. We're asking you to engage in that discussion board. We're asking you to post announcements, and if possible, also to do a video lecture. So all these types of things that we can talk about to personalize a course, to illustrate the best communication techniques, we want to illustrate in this short 2-week period. So if you put that in context, modules 1 through 4 are self-paced, and it walks everyone through kind of the basics of setting up a course in Blackboard to teach for the first time, the syllabus, their instructor information, posting a picture, posting to the discussion board. And then later on in those modules 3 and 4, we ask them to learn how to personalize their own course by adding supplemental materials, adding narrated PowerPoint, creating a video lecture, and those types of things. So we want to illustrate to our participants what that means to utilize those tools to actually teach in the online environment. So you're setting the example. By default, of course, there's a welcome announcement on the front page. This is set up exactly like our self-paced modules, except that you will be interacting with them. So on this particular course, we're going to ask you to add your information to the instructor button. Just like you would for another class, we're going to ask you to create an announcement welcoming those participants, and then we're going to ask you to also update that course calendar as soon as possible with a specific date and time for those go-to meetings. Now, how you gather what that go-to meeting time should be, that's up to you as the facilitator. Okay? If you want to poll your course, if you want to throw a couple dates out there, usually when I'm teaching this part of the course, I do like a Tuesday afternoon and then a Saturday morning, or an evening time and a morning time. I try to do at least twice a week to catch everyone. But it's up to you how you want to capture that and decide what time you're available. Excuse me, I do have a very severe cold, so excuse me if I lose my voice. We'll try to get through this together as painless as possible. Any questions so far about some of the expectations of what this class is supposed to be and your role in facilitating best practices? Okay, let's jump right in here to our modules. Again, this is set up as a slideshow, so you click the slides to advance through. We have this in our edit mode, so we're going to look at this assignment by assignment from the facilitator or the instructor mode. Okay. So each module has the overview, the objectives and competencies, and the things that they will accomplish in this module. In Module 5, it's all about communication. There are learning activities. There's a couple reading assignments. There's some videos and things to watch. There's the go-to meeting. And then there are assignments and assessments. Again, we've broken these down into the main course and the practice shell. The participants in this course will participate in their practice shell. They'll gather some Grade Center information, and they will also do one activity in the practice shell during Module 5. Okay. Each module, just like in Modules 1 through 4, have a time commitment and verification assignment. Again, that verification, the students just click reviewed after they've read this. This module is the first of the instructor-led modules. It will take 3 to 5 hours to complete. This module will feature student-to-content, student-to-instructor, and student-to-student activities. I do recommend that in that welcome announcement, you really stress the difference. They're coming out a very self-paced, a very slow mode of operation through those first 4 modules, so we want to make sure that they get into the pace and they know that there's deadlines and assignments and they have to be able to complete those to stay in the course and stay on track. There's some group work in here with a group wiki and also a blog. And they also know that they have to attend a go-to meeting. Again, to verify that they have reviewed that status, to see if they've reviewed that information, you go to the control panel, you go to evaluation, and on that performance dashboard, you'll see right here the review status. So has that student reviewed that information? And there'll be a 1, 2, and 3. When you click on that, it lists everything that should be verified in the course. This is not something that we score. We don't give them credit or points for that. We just want to make sure that they're aware of what's going on in the course. And 2, to get them in tune with reading that content and being familiar with the content and following instructions. No, Andaz, the class will not necessarily open up on the 28th of each month. We're going to start out with the 28th. We're going to enroll as many people as possible in the IL course, and then we'll continue to open up dates as we need more people. This is going to be kind of loose this first time out since we don't have a regular schedule for folks completing those self-paced modules. So again, that's how we look at that review status through the control panel and then the dashboard. Okay. So one of the first activities in this course is the icebreaker discussion board. This is very similar. If you've taught IVYC 101, then this is the same type of a discussion board icebreaker that we've done in the past. We ask our participants to post 2 truths and a lie in this discussion board by Thursday of the week, and then to post their big reveal or their big lie later on in the week. I really do hope that each facilitator will at least say hello and welcome to the course to each one of our students, trying to build that learning community and open up that collaboration and mentoring relationship at that time. Again, icebreaker discussion board, very similar, conducted under the discussion board area. Any questions about that assignment? Anyone who's not overly familiar with that assignment or has not taught that particular assignment before? Okay. All right, activity 2 is to download BBIM. Now, I've created this as an assignment where their assignment is to actually submit their BBIM user ID. This was created this way, I will tell you, for selfish reasons. My BBIM is so full, I'm enrolled in over 100 courses. I'm sure some of you rival those numbers as well. And when you get that high, of the numbers of participants, they don't always register in BBIM, and they don't show up as your classes. So what I've asked them to do is to submit just here as BCom download BBIM assignment link, their BBIM username. All of the handouts are here to help them do that. As the facilitator of the course, under the Instructor tab, we would expect you to also have your BBIM available. Maybe have, not necessarily do you have to have office hours, but to be available on BBIM at a certain time. If you have time to do a study session, that would be great. Or if you want to have published office hours, that is the icing on the cake. So that's BBIM. This might be something that's familiar to you. This is kind of a take on our old IVYC110 or 101 course, and there's a list of communication tools. We're asking our participants to review the tools, and we kind of break it down to what the tool is, kind of a brief description on how it's used, how you access that tool as a faculty member, and how you access that tool as a student. So we want them to review this document. We've tried to include every possible thing that we can think of. Okay, it goes on. And they're to review that document and then use that when they're doing their wiki, which is the next assignment. What we've asked them to do is to use those wiki communication tools and create wiki pages that they can collaborate on, delete, modify, add to, and discuss the pros and cons of each one of those tools and how they might be used in their online environment. Okay. So there's two things here. One, we're exposing them to a wiki tool, something that they've never used before or might not have used ever before. And then also having them have a group discussion on what types of tools are available in Blackboard and how they might be used. There are instructions built right in to how this is done. We've asked them to complete this assignment by Thursday. It's right here. Okay, because we want them to have that discussion completed by Thursday so they have the rest of the week to work on that communication plan. The next bit of information is how to give good feedback. Okay, purpose, clarity, consistency, and of course those QM feedback guidelines of constructive, specific, measurable, sensitive, and balanced. Okay, we want them to take a look at that. We want them to read that. We want them to become familiar with how we respond back to our students and what kind of feedback that they're using. I want to stress in this course that one of the most important communication types that we do, important to students, is that grading feedback. Not just a score, but what's good or wrong or what can be improved with those scores. So to practice that, they read that information, and then they're going to use a blog. Okay? And in this blog, they talk about one of the posts that was used in the discussion board in their practice shell, and that was Bella, who was using correct grammar. She was typing on a telephone. We want them to get the difference here between what is good grading feedback and then what is also a good response to a discussion board question. And that's what you're looking for as the facilitator. Is their response something that you would see in the Grade Center, or was it something that you would see in an announcement? We want to stress, and it's built right in here into the instructions, that you would never actually use a blog to give grading feedback. This is for practice only. And we stress that here. Do not use a blog or any public forum to give student feedback. This is strictly for practice and to also give them exposure to the blog tool and Blackboard. These blogs are already set up for you, and there's a corresponding grade in the Grade Center. Any questions so far? I feel like I'm going really quick. Thank you, Cliff and Andaz, for responding. I appreciate that. Okay, so the next activity, this grading communications activity number 2, is actually giving feedback using the Grade Center. This is where we ask them to go into their practice shell and give grading feedback in the Grade Center for the discussion board forum. There are directions here exactly on how to access the discussion board and how to do discussion board grading. And what we're asking them to do here as the assignment is for them to actually post as an assignment where their practice shell is located, both the name and the course ID. Since most of us are going to be RAs who are teaching the course, we're going to hopefully get some faculty in there as well. We'll try to work with them to get access so they can go back to that practice shell and be able to look in the Grade Center and see what types of feedback that they have given their students. Okay. This is the only time as a facilitator in the 2-week course that you will need to go back into the practice shell. Okay. To try to make that as easy as possible, since we have these practice shells coming from all of the regions across the state, we're asking them to actually tell you what their practice shell is so you can easily find that. There's a little reminder that there's a synchronous activity, and it tells them to please watch their announcements for the date and time when this webinar will take place. Okay, and here we go, the big communication plan. This is probably the biggest change in this module that has occurred since the beginning of the IVYC110 program. The communication plan was very loose. It was very open to interpretation. We've tried to narrow that down a little bit to help give a little bit more guidance. If you've taught the IVYC 110 class before, or even 101, you know that you would get a variety of types of communication plans, some very good and some not. So we've tried to make that a little bit easier. We've made this communication plan into a Blackboard portfolio, and we've made it an assignment. So here's some how-to directions on how to get there. It's really quite simple. Let me go in here, and let's do this from the student view. Okay. Okay. Oops. These are the slides, the content that we just discussed. Bear with me here as I click to the end. Okay. Oh, shoot. I forgot I'd already practiced with this. Okay. So when the student sees the assignment for the first time, they click on the link, it opens up, it talks about what the assignment is, the instructions. It talks about the handout here, which is attached to help them utilize the portfolio tool. They are recommended that they read that document first. And then the specific directions for the content for each portfolio section are built into the portfolio template. So when you come down here, you'll see that we've created a portfolio template. And for the first-time user, and again, this is in the instructions, they're going to click Create Portfolio. If they've already been working on their portfolio, they've saved a portion of it, then you can select Portfolio and select it from the tool. They click Create Portfolio for the first time. and they enter in their name. Again, this naming convention, their name, communication plan, is in the instructions, and they click Submit. It's recommended that they take the tour. It's not required, but if you haven't ever taken the tour before, it's pretty cool. You click Take the Tour, and what I was really surprised about and very thrilled about is that it actually takes you through this template. It's not a generic walkthrough. It's very specific to this actual template that they're using. Tony, I don't recall from IVYC110 self-paced portion, will this be their first encounter with the portfolio tool? Yes, it is. This is their first time exposed to the portfolio tool. With the tour, it tells you exactly what each one of these are. This is the portfolio header. It tells you where it's located, and you can just click the next or the previous button. This is called the navigator. It's kind of like the table of contents to the right of the page. Click next. This is how you add a page or insert a section. Our students won't actually have to do that. This is the portfolio actions, or usually like the green action toolbar. If they choose not to take the tour or they want to review the tour again, there's this little icon. It's on the breadcrumb trail over here in the right top-hand corner, and that's the little icon that launches the tour again. And they just close out. Okay. So this communication plan is broken down into several areas. Preparing my course. In this section, you will talk about the steps you will take to set up your course prior to the start of the semester. Items should include reviewing the instructor resources, identifying specific instructor tasks such as updating the course syllabus, calendar, and instructor button, identifying topics that will require supplemental materials. So it's broken down, gives them directions on exactly what they should be including in here. In the handout, it also talks the difference about adding supporting text here in the text box and adding artifacts and what those artifacts could be. The next section is student to instructor communication. So basically, how are you going to communicate directly with your students in the course? This communication plan should really be, what are your plans on how to teach the course? What will you do to set up the content? What kind of supplemental materials will you create? What kind of communication tools will you use? So they're broken down into these sections. So student to instructor communication. Are you going to use BBIM? Are you going to be using synchronous study sessions, discussion boards, office hours, phone, text, email messages, etc.? Again, they will add their content here, what they're planning to use, and they're welcome to give examples that they've created during the course or something that they're planning to use in their course. The next section is called student to content communication, and this is where we talk about those tools and those assignments that we did in modules 3 and 4 about personalizing your course. So are you going to provide any supplemental materials? Are you going to do any narrated PowerPoint? Are you going to use any OER materials? And please describe those strategies for how you will use this in the learning environment. Okay. The next section is the grading area. So how frequently will you be giving feedback to your students? What kind of feedback? How frequently? Make sure that you're giving specific, constructive, measurable, sensitive, and balanced grading feedback, and how frequently, what your plan is for doing that. The final section is the time commitment. And one of the things that I think our faculty, based on the feedback that I've received, is that our online faculty don't always realize the time commitment it takes to teach an online course, especially those who are new to the online environment. So when they're creating their communication plan, I want them to be thinking about how much time does this take? If I want to do video lectures every single semester, when am I going to do that during the week? How much time am I going to allow to create those? And is that really practical with my grading and my communication feedback to my students with that 36-hour deadline? You know, how will I really manage my time and make this happen? If I do office hours, how frequently am I going to do office hours? How does that fit into my larger picture? So this final section is about the time commitment. Once they are done, and they could do one section at a time, they can do done editing. Okay. And this automatically takes them to their portfolio area. When the student returns to the portfolio, they're not going to necessarily access that through that class assignment. They're going to go up here to the Global Navigational Toolbar. It's located right up here in the top right-hand corner. And when they use their little pull-down menu, this is also in their handout, they're going to select Portfolios from the Tools area, and it opens this up again. Okay. To edit, they simply click the Edit button. It opens them back up to their canvas, and they can continue updating the course. Now, when they're completely done with their portfolio, I need to go back into the course, so excuse me just a second. Obviously, the students and participants would access that through MyBB on that main page through their course module. Excuse me, I had to cough there for a second. Okay. So the second time that they would access that, this is what it would look like. They would select their portfolio. It gives them a list of all the portfolios that they have, and then click Submit. It's now attached, and then the student would just click Submit again. And it now puts them into the Grade Center. So this is the same view. You wouldn't have the Start New button, but this is if you go into the Grade Center as a faculty member, this is what you're going to see. You can download it to look at it offline, or you can grade it in the Grade Center, and it looks just like this. Okay. How many of you have actually used the portfolio tool before? Yay, Tony. Stephanie, Dennis, Jennifer a little bit. Steve Mitchell has not. Pat, no. Okay, so some of you are a little bit more familiar with it. I think this will give it some structure, the communication plan. I'm hoping for the best because it's part of their Blackboard portfolio and part of that global navigational toolbar. I'm hoping that it's going to be easy to access for them to continue to use that during their semester teaching online, and then also as they continue to tweak that during the mentoring program too. Any initial concerns or questions about the portfolio tool and how we're using it with the communication plan? Oh, good idea, Tony. For those of you who have taught IVYC 101 or 110 before and remember the communication plan in the past, do you think this is a good solution? I'm still open for suggestions. I'm just going to give this a try and hope it works, but I am open for suggestions on this particular tool and how I've got this formatted. Okay. Thank you, Rika. Dennis? That's true. Okay. All right. Well, I do appreciate your feedback, and like we do in QM, I would like to continue, think of these courses and the certification program as a continuous loop of improvement. So we'll try this for a couple times, couple sessions, see how it works. We'll see what kind of problems we run into. I've not used it as an assignment like this before, so I'm interested in seeing how that actually works out for us. I've tried to run it through all of its paces, but I'm sure, just like in Blackboard, there's a gremlin that's just going to jump right out and get us one way or the other. So I appreciate your willingness to try it, and I'm looking forward to hearing how that works for you. That's right, Cliff. I don't want to jinx myself. Shh. All right, so let's take a look. Let's exit this preview mode. And take a quick look at Module 6. Module 6 is a little bit lighter week. The main reason for that is I kind of want them to work on that communication tool or communication plan. If there's any revision that needs to take place, I want to give them that extra time in week 2 to be able to work on that as well. Okay, so again, Module 6, we have the overview, the competencies, and upon this completion of this module, you can. And this particular module is all about reflection of their time in the course. It's about the proctor forms. It's about how to save the grade center, a little bit of a heads up on what's going to happen with the mentoring program, and next steps. So they're going to read and learn about how to download the grade center, how to fill out a proctor form. There's a go-to meeting here, and it's also scheduled for this session. I usually save the go-to meeting for any kinds of questions that they have about online learning or the delivery of online courses. We talk a little bit about the mentoring program as well. But it's up to you. That's whatever fits the needs of your students at the time when you do those go-to meetings. Okay. Now, the participants will actually go to their practice shell. They will download the Grade Center documents from their practice shell and submit that as an Excel spreadsheet. You do not have to go into the practice shell as the facilitator for any reason. So again, we have the time commitment. We want to make sure that they understand that they're going to go to the practice shell to complete assignments in the main course. With the reflection discussion board, they are only required to post an original post. And basically what that reflection discussion board is what they learned in the course and any outstanding questions that they might still have. As the facilitator of the course, you really need to be on top of that discussion board and try to respond back to those participants on any questions that are still lingering in their mind. Here's a little reminder about the synchronous activity. And grade activity 1 is submitting a copy of the Grade Center. So this is a description on how to download the Grade Center. There's a best practice about you should be doing this at least once a week or every time you update the Grade Center. I think that best practice comes from when Blackboard was a little bit more unstable than it is now, but it's a good habit to get into. We asked them to submit this. This is an assignment link here in Blackboard, and they're going to submit that as an Excel spreadsheet. The number one thing that some of our faculty forget to do is to convert it into an Excel spreadsheet, so you'll sometimes get a CSV file. If so, just let them know. Please resubmit that as an Excel spreadsheet, and then of course you would not give them the full 20 points for that assignment. You would knock them down just a little bit, enough to still give them the 90% if they do it correctly, but you just don't want to give them a perfect score for having to do it a second time. All right, so as you know, since the last time we've offered this course, the proctor form and process has changed. Okay, so this talks about, ask them to go to the Click for Help tab in Blackboard and locate the Testing Services module. It asks them to review this Testing Services module, to go through all of this information. We asked them to fill out a proctor form for their students in their practice shell. So there will be 3 students, Edward Collin, Bella Swan, and Christopher Thor, and this will be for their midterm assignment, and that's very specific in the directions that they've been given. We asked them not to actually submit that to their testing center, but to actually take that proctor form and submit it in the course as an assignment. Okay. If you haven't already looked at it, oops. These are some really great instructions on how to fill out the proctor form. So as the facilitator of the course, this is kind of what you want to make sure is being filled out. Okay, are all the students there, and do they have the correct information in options 1, 2, 3, and 4 here on the proctor form? The reason this course is directed back to Click for Help tab instead of building those documents into the course is that that's a very fluid process, and I know they're already in the process of updating some of that information based on some feedback that we're getting from the testing centers and from faculty. So it's just easier to have that one-stop shopping where you know the real documents are located. A little bit less course maintenance. Okay. Okay. Self-evaluation. So because this is a 3-part certification program, we have the self-paced modules, we have the instructor-led modules, and then we have a 1-semester length mentoring program that's required. We have an instructor checklist, and what we're asking them to do is to go in and take a look at this checklist and just fill it out. It's not the prettiest document. I think that this assignment could probably still use a little bit of work. So it kind of walks them through things that are expected. Again, we're reinforcing the expectations that we have of our online faculty. They can click this link, they can write a yes or no, and it's okay if they haven't completed all of these tasks. For example, as you go through here, it starts getting in, did you report your NWs? Did you report your midterm grades? Those types of things that they haven't yet done in the online faculty certification program, but they are things that we talk about in the mentoring program. So again, this is just kind of an evaluation of what you did, kind of reinforcing what they've done in the course, what we're expecting them to do as online instructors, and then kind of taking a look at what they still need to learn or what they don't know about yet. And that's what we cover in the mentoring program. They do have to download this document and then resubmit it as an assignment. Okay. This course, we use a Qualtrics survey. It is anonymous. There's no points issued for taking it, but it is a required part of the course. And basically what we want them to know, is, what did they like about the course, what they didn't. We can take a quick look at it if you want to. This is something that's used for all of the training courses from the OEI. They select their facilitator. They may or may not know who that is. I need to add to that list. How would you describe your knowledge before and after the event? There's several of these types of questions. Did it meet your expectations? Are you able to apply what you've learned? Did it meet the objectives? Was it organized and easy to follow? It asks us specifics about the facilitator. How would you rate it? And then there's some open-ended questions as well. This information was used a lot after the first go-around, the first pilot rounds of the courses, and a lot of the changes in the course was built around that feedback that we received in the reflection discussion boards, and then also on these Qualtrics surveys. So that is the 2-week course kind of in a nutshell. What is your initial reaction? What questions do you have, or what concerns? I do want to reassure you that I am adding to this information to the facilitator guide. It's just I've had some other priorities and I have not completed that document yet, but there will be a facilitator guide very similar to the one that we have in the SP sections of the Online Faculty Certification Program, which spells out this information very specifically for you. That's a good point, Tony. Great, Steve. I'm glad you like the portfolio. There are not rubrics for grading. That's on my list of things to do to improve this course. I'd like to do that for the communication plan specifically. I've started one. Okay. So if you've reviewed this content and you're still interested in teaching this course, I sent out an application to you right before this meeting started. Those facilitators or instructors who have taught online before are preferred. If you have not taught online before, but you would really like a chance to teach this type of course, then I'd like to talk with you individually, fill out the application, and I'd like to maybe partner you up with an experienced instructor for your first time. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying there might be a little extra hoop that you might need to jump through to teach one of these online sections. So please do apply. It's very simple, your name, what you're applying for, either the mentor positions, which we haven't really talked about yet, and then also the facilitator. If you think you might be interested in being a mentor over a semester-long period, please do not hesitate to fill that out. There is a signature there for your REO or for your supervisor, just so we know that your region is okay with you taking on a little bit of extra work there. Stephanie, you finished up that degree, but thank you. I'm looking forward to you being part of our team. And you're welcome to fill out the application now, and I'll just hold on to it until a later date to teach a class. There's no problem there. The one thing, when you teach the 2-week course, there is a $250 stipend that is paid to you for your teaching abilities in that 2-week course period. So there is a little bit of compensation for that. Okay. that is the information I have for you today. I appreciate your time, especially on a Friday afternoon. I'd be glad to hang out with you and answer any other questions that you might have. If you have any questions about the application or compensation or anything like that, I will stay online with you for another few minutes. Thank you for